I'm Barbara Curry. I am a screenwriter, mostly features, trying to get into television. I was a former federal prosecutor working at the U.S. Attorney's Office. I really had no intention of going into writing when I stopped working at the U.S. Attorney's Office. And I thought, well, it's time to leave the U.S. Attorney's Office before I go and look for another job, maybe in the private sector. I'm going to take a couple years off. And during those couple of years, I realized that, I loved being with my children, and they seemed to need me more as they got older. And so I thought, what can I do where it's more flexible and I could do it maybe from home? And I'd always been a writer. I always been a big reader. I never really knew, though, until coming out here to LA that there was such a thing as screenwriting. And once I began to explore that, I just couldn't go back. I loved it. I've always loved watching movies, and I love this idea of creating your own world and these characters and putting in the middle of some sort of dilemma and seeing how they're going to get out. So I was hooked. As anybody who knows me would know, I am big on formal education. I always feel that somebody out there knows more than I do. I should go find out what they know. I went and applied and luckily got into UCLA's MFA in screenwriting program. But the most important aspect of all of those experiences was not necessarily someone teaching me how to write or learning structure from books or professors. It was really just being forced to have deadlines, meet deadlines, and write a lot. I had written a romantic comedy, and UCLA sent it out, and my first manager, who really didn't do the kind of romantic comedies I did, really loved it. That ultimately led to them getting my foot in the door for my first feature that was produced, which ended up being a thriller. I graduated from UCLA in 2009, and so I started there 2007 or 6 or something like that. And The Boy Next Door sold 2011 maybe, and was made in 2013. I was driving back from my spinning class, and my manager called me, and I pulled over because I make a habit of not talking on the phone while I'm driving. And he said, "So what do you think of Jennifer Lopez?" And I said, "Yeah, she's really great. Why?" "Well, she wants to be in your movie." And I've had so many calls like that that I didn't even blink. I hate to say that I'd become jaded at this point, but I'm like, oh, great. And I drove on home, not even really thinking anything about it. That was what ended up happening, though. And so in retrospect, I could call that the moment. But I think the moment I really felt that it was going and that this was going to be a movie was when we had our first director on board, who was a director I really admired, a guy named Frank Oz, who did a lot of fantastic movies. Having him call me up and give me notes, and having a meeting with him and having coffee with him, and his sitting there and telling me, what drew him to the script, not only made me feel like, okay, this is happening, but here's this giant who really appreciated something I wrote. If the dream had just ended right there in that little coffee shop in Malibu after my meeting with Frank Oz, if I walked out and was hit by a car and died, I really almost think that was the moment where I really thought that I made it. This is it. This is all I needed, And that was that's the one moment I can pinpoint to. Now, if I wasn't aware of it then, I am certainly aware of it now that, filmmaking is a very collaborative thing. And collaboration doesn't often mean you have equal say in what gets transfer it onto screen. Collaboration is often a relay race where I run my leg, I hand it off, and somebody else is running their leg and stumbles or wins, crosses the finish line as the winner. So I can't really equate how it went from my script to how it ended up, how the movie ended up. It did change significantly. Vast parts of it I didn't even recognize. I really felt that I should start looking toward television. It seems like, and everybody says this because I think it's true, that that's where all the action seems to be going. And then with my legal background, people had always said, oh, you should think about writing in television. I love having a legal background and I love legal television shows, but I also didn't want to limit myself to that. And there was that fear. Of course, the first pilot I wrote and the first pilot that was picked up was a legal show. So maybe I'm going to be pigeonholed in that area again, but if that's what gets me in, that's what gets me in. I pitched it in the room and the wonderful executive at NBC said, well, that sounds great, let's do it. And I kind of sat there and thought, wait, what? It was such a surreal moment to have something actually bought in the room, as they say, and I was very excited about it. And then the whole process of doing it, of developing it with them, was just fantastic. I mean, my destination when I started out was, and I was so silly, I thought, oh, well, I just want to get a movie made. And I think now, I just want to get a movie made. I didn't realize that was like the hardest thing ever to do. But I want to do another one, and I want to do it more in line with how I see the movie coming out, and I want to do a really good movie. I don't need to win an Academy Award, but I want to do a movie that that I'm really proud of. That could be that line on my gravestone. She was a great mother, great wife, and she wrote blank, that thing. And I haven't gotten there yet, and especially thinking you don't want to be a one-trick pony. You don't want to just make one movie. You want to make a lot of movies. You want to have a career, and how is that going to happen? You need to be part dreamer. You need to be very practical about how you're going to go about it, but you really need to keep holding on to that dream of, I'm going to do this, I can do this.